Hey, everybody, welcome, welcome. I'm excited to get us going here with this money mindset webinar today, talking about Jesus, ministry, money, and me. So I am knowing that you are coming, hoping that I'm going to give you some insights that you haven't yet understood about money management, about trusting God, about honoring God with your money, and about moving forward from wherever you are to where it is that God wants you to go. That is my heart as well. And so we are going to get going here. And if you haven't already grabbed your worksheet for this session, it's right below us here on this same page at Hey Summit. And if you're watching somewhere else online, you need to use that link and go over to Hey Summit and join us over there in order to get into the chat as well as to access the worksheets. So here we go. And I know that you watched the preview and you know why we're here. It's because I had lots of money trouble, lots and lots and lots of money trouble over the years. And I am just now so grateful to God for giving me the opportunity to not be past all money troubles. That's not going to ever happen in our lives, but to be at peace with money and with God and with others. So here we go. So what I want to do first is I want to just go through this amazing gave to the poor, and sometimes he would feed a tunic to his name. And I don't know why this cool is that as we think of Jesus's life, we recognize that he was kind of on all spectrums, right? He was all over when it came to money. And so we can't just say, okay, God's path for everybody is that they're rich. The only point in Jesus's life that we would have said he was financially rich with earthly money would have been when he was, somewhere between 0 and 3 years old, when he was really little, a baby. And his family was at that time given some gold by some guys. And so at that point, he was rich, but the rest of his life didn't seem like he was rich very much. So if we're saying that the principle that we're going to go by is that we're looking for earthly wealth, and that's when we'll be satisfied, that might not work out for us because that was not Jesus's example. I want to go a little farther then and talk to you about Solomon and John the Baptist. So we have kind of two extremes here. So if we think about the life of Solomon, we have got, hang on one second here. Can't hear you. So far, we can't hear me at all. My mic is on. Oh, my. Let's see. How can you not hear me? That's quite odd. So can you hear me now, Victoria? Are you able to hear? You can hear me now. Should I just keep going or go back to that first? So it's when I put the screen up to full screen that we will go forward from here. Thanks so much. So that whole first section, you didn't hear that part because I'd like to go back. I'm just going to go back then. It's important that we catch that. All right, so we're going to go back here and I'm going to just say welcome again. Sorry, it's always interesting. Tech is always interesting. So I'm going to take this. All right, so we aren't going to be able to share that full screen then somehow. Usually that works, and today it doesn't. So there we are. All right, so basically what I wanted to go through was in Jesus's life, he had everything from being born into poor parents all the way into when he died. He didn't have anything except a tunic to his name. That was his worldly belongings, was a tunic. And in the middle, wise men came and donated money to the family. I mean, at that point, somewhere between ages 0 and 3, he became wealthy. Yeah, he got gold and frankincense and myrrh. And most of us don't get that. So that was at the beginning of his life. Then he went through life, and he I'm just going to grab it. I think I didn't have it another place. So let's see if I can go small here. There we go. Okay. So what I wanted to do was go through this, and I'm going to start again. Here we go. So we're going to start again. He was born into a poor family. Wise men made them rich with gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Jesus worked to support himself as a carpenter until age 30. He paid taxes once from a coin found in a fish's mouth. He was humble. Several women are named as supporting his ministry. He assigned Judas to be the treasurer of his ministry. His ministry gave money to the poor and fed the crowds miraculously. He knew that Judas was embezzling, at least for part of the time, but he didn't seem to do anything about that. He used a rock for a pillow, so that means to me that sometimes he was homeless. Sometimes he stayed in people's homes, like Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. At least he borrowed a donkey in an upper room. He was sold for 30 pieces of silver. And he was, at the end of his life, he only had a tunic to his name. He was buried in a donated tomb that he did get to give back. So what's crazy about this is that if we come into our thinking about money, thinking that God wants to prosper all of us financially right here on earth, then we have to just rule out Jesus's life. Because the only time that we could say that God literally prospered him with earthly financial wealth was between ages 1 and 3, somewhere in the early years, as they had that gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And who knows how much of it was, we don't know. After that, certainly during his ministry, he was not a wealthy man. And if he was a wealthy man, he would have stayed in hotels. And I'm sure they had places like that because they couldn't find a place to stay, a hotel, when he was a baby, when he was going to be born. So we just know that sometimes our expectations are not in alignment with God's reality for our lives. And I just want to use the examples of Solomon and John the Baptist here. It's really crazy. Is if you think about two extremes, you've got Solomon, and God got really happy with Solomon because Solomon asked for wisdom, and God said, wow, you asked for that instead of wealth and a bunch of other things. You asked for wisdom. So therefore, Solomon, I'm going to give you pleased me with that answer. I'm going to give you a bunch of money. And that's what happened to Solomon. He got all the money, plus he got the wisdom. Now, if you go to the opposite extreme, you've got John the Baptist, who Jesus, when he was talking to his disciples said there was no greater man than John the Baptist. So now, is God pleased with John the Baptist? We'd have to say, yes, God is very pleased with John the Baptist, right? So why then is John the Baptist wearing camel skin as his clothes, eating insects, and beheaded? So you have both of these huge extremes here. And you can't just come into the Bible and say, if I follow God, if I'm doing what he asks, he's going to financially bless me with earthly money. It's just not biblical. So the truths I want to go over here then include that money is neither good nor bad. Money itself is neutral. If you just take a dollar bill, it's just a piece of paper. The only thing is it's assigned value, and it's not something with which to have a relationship. Don't have a relationship with your money. Money is paper. It's air. It's water. It's just a thing. Don't have a relationship with it. Instead, think of money a little like stress. So what am I talking about? If we think of money like stress, what would that look like? So if you take a bicycle tire, and it has the right amount of stress, the right amount of pressure in it, the bicycle will run, right? But if you take that same bicycle tire and you let some of the air out of it and it's flat now, even on just a little flat, it's just hard to bike. If you have a bottle of soda, of pop, and you have too much pressure, you shake it up and now it's got too much pressure, it's going to explode, right? But if you let it sit for too long, or you shake it up and let it sit again several times, it's going to go flat, not enough pressure. So if we think of money like stress or pressure, there is a point that is correct. The right amount of stress or pressure with money is going to be fine. It's going to be like opening that soda bottle, having that sound, and then having a swig. So when you think of money, you want to think of it kind of like the air that's in a balloon. Okay, you have a balloon that needs payment. Even that we call them balloon payments, right? You have a balloon. It needs money, and the money has to be the right amount for what you're supposed to be doing. When you have too much money, okay, there's a verse in the Bible, don't give me too much or I'll get proud. When you have too much, we tend to start trusting our money, becoming very self-centered, becoming very focused on the money. When you have too little money and more bills than your money, then you're worried about money, always thinking about money, like that. So the right amount of stress in the balloon, the right amount of stress with money in our lives is that we are doing exactly what God called us to do, whether we are John the Baptist, Jesus, or Solomon. You are doing exactly what God created and called us to do, and he's providing the financing, which is where we're going to go with this, which is the most exciting thing ever. So like stress, money is a necessary component of life, and its use is defined by its value. Its use defines its value. So the goal here then is to align our thoughts about ourselves, about money, about God, about his purposes for money, while joyously managing any fund that he assigns to us. The position that we hold is as a temple of the Holy Spirit. I get to serve as his flow through vessel, and he gives, I receive, I enjoy, and I share. So this is, the principle of the flow through vessel is that we sometimes think we're supposed to come up with the water that other people drink from our life, but that's not true. Jesus is the water of life. We're supposed to be full of Jesus, focusing on the Spirit. And then as other people drink on our lives, what they get is God. They get God. They don't get just the best I can do, or they don't get me on my worst moment. They actually get God. And as money comes through our life, it's the same principle again now with money. Money is not something I'm supposed to come up with, hoard, protect, give to anybody I want, spend on anything I want. It's supposed to be this beautiful, beautiful process of God giving me money to do what he wants me to do. Once I have the money, I get to enjoy the money, okay? And then I get to share out the money. So we receive money, we enjoy money, we share money. All of these at God's direction. How much we receive is up to God. How we enjoy it is between us and God. How we share it out is between us and God. Even how much we receive is between us and God, but we'll get there in a minute. Okay. So the verses that I want to share then with you at the bottom here is the mindset on the flesh is hostile toward God, but the mindset on the spirit is life and peace. And this is just huge. If I could just only share one thing with you today, if you leave with only one thing, it is this. When your mind is focused on the money, the lack of money, the thing you're going to do with the money, the thing you want to buy with the money, how much more money you need, if you're supposed to do this or that with the money, when your mind is focused on the money, you are actually in a position of hostility toward God. You feel angry or upset, disillusioned, or something. There's something there that feels really bad, and it's hostility toward God. When your mind is set on the Spirit, trusting the Holy Spirit with all of your money, what you receive, how you enjoy it, and what you share, then your mind is life and peace, which is just a huge difference. And then the other one is just to remember to seek first the kingdom of God, and all the rest will be added to you. Get your mind set on him. So the mindset on the flesh is hostile toward God, but the mindset on the Spirit is life and peace. God raised us. There's two verses. This is where the tension comes in here. This is the stress. Top verse on the left. God raised us up together and made us sit together in heavenly places with Christ. So I am, from God's perspective, sitting right now in the heavenlies with Christ. I am a princess. I am ruling. I am outside of the earthly confines. But Then we have 2 Corinthians 4:8-9, where the reality that we feel is that we are troubled on every side. We are not distressed, but we are perplexed, but not in despair. We are persecuted, but not forsaken. We are cast down, but not destroyed. So this is how it feels. And this is where the tension comes in here. If we are living from the earth up, on the right side there, if we're living from the earth up, thinking about all this from earthly thoughts, then we are troubled on every side, perplexed and persecuted and cast down. But if we are thinking about this from heaven down, seated with Christ, who owns all the cattle on all the hills, he has all the wealth, he has everything, then we are not distressed, not in despair, not forsaken, and not destroyed. It's how we're thinking about it that is changing our experience with it. So how we get out from under the pain, strain, and limitations of feeling like there's not enough money is to experience life from heaven looking down. Now, how you understand what you do about the existing debt and financial needs that you've got right now. So on the left, you got into this trouble because you actually thought it was good for you to spend money on these things that you've spent money on. They looked great, like a gift. They were like, wow, awesome, awesome, awesome. But what happened is you got yourself into debt, or you got yourself into a financial pinch. Okay, so what's going to happen is that God is going to trade out that financial pinch for a godly perspective. Instead of having all these bills and all this stuff that is just requiring your focus, your management, your care, you're going to have one big thing. You're going to have God. You're going to have the focus on him and on what he's doing for you. And that's going to change everything going forward. So we're going to help you identify areas where you may be worrying, hoarding, scrimping, or hiding money to self-protect. And again, it's because you can do this because the focus is on God being our fortress, God being our provider, God being our rock. So we don't have to do that anymore. How to eliminate any fear, guilt, shame, pressure, or confusion surrounding finances. Again, it's back to the mind set on the spirit. Now, I want to just tell you that if you have fear about money because you think God might not make you rich, you are absolutely right to have the thought. It's possible God might not make you rich. I put this picture up here because I want us to remember Paul in prison. So Paul was sitting in prison writing, I have learned to be content with anything. I can be content with money. I can be content with nothing. I can be content when things are going great. I can be content when I'm in prison. So basically, once again, if you're going to focus your mind on that, you need God to do money your way, your preconceived idea of money, that God has to do it that way. Well, then you will be focusing on the flesh and fear will be painful and powerful. But as soon as, and to the degree that you submit yourself to Christ, will be gone. Fear has no place to live when you just agree that what God has called you to do and to be and to accomplish on earth is what you're supposed to do and be and accomplish. All kinds of verses about the widow and the 2 mites and the people with lots of money who gave more, the widow with 2 mites. How come? Why would God say such a thing? Because from his perspective, it's all about heart. It's not all about money. John the Baptist was the greatest man who lived. He never really had money that we have any indication of. If you're all about the money, then it's going to be really painful because the fear is going to be real. Because God is not playing a game. He's not conforming himself to us. We are conforming ourselves to him. So we want to start saying yes to God every single time, including advancing our lives based in faith as it relates to finances. We want to step into the bigger calling that God has on your life and ministry. There's just as much fear potential when you are in debt, owing a lot of people money, or when God's called you to a ministry that costs too much and you don't have enough. It's the same fear that comes. I'm not going to be able to do this. I don't have the wherewithal. I can't come up with the money. My cup is only this full, but I need it this full. The thing is that once we have our mind set on the spirit, we have life and peace when it relates to money, whether it is helping us get out of a jam we've gotten ourselves in, or whether it is saying yes to God for a big calling that he has on our life. When God started calling me to believe and call in more money, I was like, I don't even understand what this is. But he asked me to just call in, just call in more money. And he even put in my mind that I was to be like a conductor and I was to actually call in money. And I was supposed to go like this from the flute section or like that from the drums. I don't even understand how that works, but I know that that's what he asked me to do. I know that's what I did. And I know that he always provides. He always provides. And is it sometimes the midnight hour? Yep, sometimes it's the midnight hour. Is it sometimes that I'm in a fiery furnace past the midnight hour in the furnace? Paul, past the midnight hour in prison? Yep, sometimes that's when it is. But if God has called us to it, God will lead us through it. If God has called you to do something, it is just as scary to say yes to him as it is to have debt over your head. But the difference is that when you have debt, that is not in line with his calling on our lives. But when you are called to him, the same fear emotion comes up when you want to step into ministry. So this is why I'm so excited to share this training with you. Okay. God says, I just get a kick out of this. Jeremiah 29:11. I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you, not to harm you, plans to give you hope in a future. And I just sometimes just sit and marvel that God has a plan for me. I'm just one person. How many billion people? 7 people on planet Earth now? I'm one person alive in 2023. And he has a plan for me. And when that verse was penned, they were actually in captivity. I mean, that wasn't a good time for them. And it took a lot of faith to believe that. And you may be here feeling really like you're in captivity with money, but I'm just going to tell you, God has a great plan for you. He does. He has a plan. And maybe it's a John the Baptist plan. And maybe it's a Stephen the Martyr plan. And maybe it's, Joseph of Arimathea plan where you're wealthy enough to donate a tomb to God. Whatever it is, God's got a plan for you. And our goal is to stop feeling cheated, taken advantage of, or underpaid as we align ourselves with God. We don't want to be mad at God. We don't want to be mad at people. We don't want to be mad at ourselves. We want to get in line with what God has for us so that we can give freely or at the right price. We can receive with grace or for the right amount of money, receive it in exchange for something. I mean, all of these things are legit. These things aren't made up. They're from God. So then we also want to start being a flow-through vessel for funds so we can learn to get out of the God complex. And I just want to pause there because this is the only time I'm going to mention this during this program. But some of us are giving generously because the Bible tells us to, and it does over and over and over. It tells us to give generously. And some of us are giving generously out of a wrong motive. We're doing it to maybe impress God or because we see a need and we could, so we do without checking. There was a time when a ministry friend from India reached out and they had a desperate need. They needed just $500. And I remember at the time thinking, oh man, I don't have it. And just let me cough here for a second. I'm just on the tag end of a cold here. So anyway, I don't have it, but I checked with my husband and I said, can we do this? I know it's legit. They really need it. And he said, we don't have an inch of wiggle room right now. It was kind of toward the end of our businesses and we were just all strapped every which way. So I just wrote back, I'll be praying with you that God will provide, but I'm sorry, we can't right now. So a few days after that, I had this thought come through my mind. That was, Marnie, if you would have had the $500, would you have given it? And I said, absolutely. I would have given it without any thought. And God prompted in my heart, that's why you didn't have it. And I was like, what? He's like, you can't just keep on giving without checking with me. Everybody who asks you for money, everybody who needs money, that's not your problem. Your responsibility is to check with me, with God, about how he wants us to spend our money. Well, that was revolutionizing for me. There were so many things along this journey that changed my perspective about what's going on here. And one of them is that sometimes we give out of wrong motives. It's a great thing, but maybe we have a God complex. We're just trying to fix the world. Or maybe we're giving where God actually meant somebody else to give. So we want to be a flow through vessel where we are letting him give us the funds, fill us up, and then let him even decide where it's going to go. So just because somebody comes to you and says, I need your right arm, give me your right arm, we don't have to say yes. It's our responsibility to take care of what God's given us. Doing that through connection with him is what's going to work. All right. Let's see here. So the next one is the right amount of stress is good. So tension is part of God's plan on earth, kind of coming back in here toward the end here now of this session. God raised us up together and made us sit together in the heavenly places. We want to live from the top down so that when we are troubled, we don't have to be distressed. When we are perplexed, we don't have to go into despair. When we are persecuted, we don't have to feel forsaken because we're not. When we are cast down, we don't have to be destroyed. So this is the beautiful thing is once we get our head around tension, then we're able to actually get on with it with God. So in your worksheet for this time, if you want to just, we're going to take a little bit of time here for you to go by yourself to complete your worksheet. And then we'll come back and we'll have a Q&A and talk about any insights you got from that. So the worksheet is just to go down and say, I did it again. Okay, instead of expecting tension and stress surrounding the topic of money, I've been expecting God to, and I want you to just fill these in with your own words, your own thoughts. And you have 15 minutes. We'll come back after that, and we'll just spend some time kind of talking it through. But I want you to really start praying about all of these thoughts that are on this fieldwork page here, where you've had a certain idea about it your whole life. Like you were raised being told things. You've heard things from pastors. You've taken Bible verses out of context and just looked at that one verse. You have, you've experienced things. Maybe you've experienced times when you had a critical financial need and God did not provide the way you thought he should. There's all these kind of things in your subconscious thinking, in your history, that you need to kind of get surfaced up here and released to God. And there may even be, I'm just going to tell you, there may even be some anger at God somewhere in here. And all the rest of the emotions we want to get rid of. Like if we're sad, if we feel lonely, all the other emotions we want to get rid of. But there's this thing about anger that makes us want to hold on to it. Like if you've been angry at God about money, if this has been a thing between you and God, there's something about anger that makes us feel powerful. If we hold on to it, we think, wow, this is going to be so much better than if I forgive. Because if I forgive, then I have no control. But if I can stay angry, then I have a little bit of control left. And I just want to encourage you that control is a delusion. We are all hopelessly addicted to the delusion that we are in control of anything. We are not. God is in control. And the sooner you release that anxiety, that anger, that frustration, that bitterness, whatever it is that you have, the sooner God can begin to bless you, to free you with finances. And when I say bless you, I mean that he will provide everything you need to accomplish what he's calling you to do. We're going to talk later about the situations in which we see abundance and wealth and so much money, and that actually, most of us who are attending this are very wealthy compared to other people around the world with physical financial wealth. But God's definition of true wealth is not our definition. And yet he does love to lavish money on people he can trust with it. And so as we're going through this, we want to remember that the mind set on the flesh, the mind set on the money is hostile toward God. But the mindset on the spirit is life and peace. Okay, we'll see you back. It'll pop up the next session when we're ready. So we'll see you there.